Now, it's little over 2 years until the next US presidential election, and the suspected front-runner for the Democratic Party nomination is Hillary Clinton. The former First Lady has so far been non-committal, but with a new book out, speculation is rife that she'll mount a bid to follow in the footsteps of her husband into the Oval Office. Hard Choices covers her time as US Secretary of State and her thoughts on issues from the Arab Spring uprisings to the shooting of Osama bin Laden. Earlier, I caught up with her and I began by asking if the current crisis in the Middle East had been stoked up by the rapid growth of Israeli settlements.
We have had a very clear policy that the settlements are illegitimate, and we have worked very hard to, on the one hand, support Israel's defense, on the other hand, to try to draw lines on these settlements.
But with respect, it's failed.
Well, I have to agree with you, and it has failed because it is very difficult to intervene even with a friend when that friend feels threatened. So that, for example, at Camp David, I don't know that any Israeli government could have offered more than Ehud Barak did at the time. Arafat could not say yes, lost that opportunity.
Well, Barak could not say yes to East Jerusalem being the capital of
Palestine. That was part of the potential outcome that would be realized over time. I don't believe that anybody in authority in Ramallah knew anything about the kidnapping and killing of these 3 young Israeli men, and I don't think anybody in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv knew about what appears to be retaliatory killing of this young Arab man.
When you left office, your advice to Mr. Obama was, Mr. Putin is your big threat. Mm-hmm. Were you right? Because don't we and the Russians share the same big threat? I mean, when one looks at ISIS, the leadership, many of the men in the ranks are Chechens. Mm-hmm.
Well, I believed in the reset with Russia that I announced because there are areas where we should be cooperating, counterterrorism being one of them. Russia has a very long border with restive republics on one side and restive population on the other side.
But we're not.
Oh, yes, we are. We cooperate with Russia on terrorism, and we will continue to do so.
But we don't talk directly to Mr. Putin.
Oh, yes. Well, if he will talk to us, we talk to him. That's often the condition precedent that's not met. We believe that Russia should be building a modern economy, a diversified economy, and a democracy that will fulfill the aspirations of the Russian people and make Russia great in the future. What Putin apparently believes is that Russia's greatness is in the past, and therefore it must be regained by dominating, intimidating, and influencing its neighbors.
The biggest thing at the moment is Iraq. Mm-hmm. Do you now see a Kurdish state? I mean, it's very hard to see the best trained military in the region, the Peshmerga, leaving Kirkuk. Mm-hmm. And they've got oil. Mm-hmm. And after all, we talked about the Israeli state and the Palestinian state. The Palestinians, you said, deserve a state. That's right. Don't the Kurds deserve a state?
Well, I think that they certainly deserve autonomy, whether that becomes a state.
Well, they've had that.
Well, they've had autonomy.
Anarchic autonomy.
But they've had some restrictions and some challenges from the Iraqi government in Baghdad. I view this as a failure of leadership by Nouri al-Maliki.
Now, from your book, it's clear the British are friends.
Yes.
That's a nice thing to be. But on the other hand, if you'd seen the New York Times front page just a little earlier in the week, you would have seen that there's a perception that Britain is undertaking a nervous breakdown, that we are having a crisis of identity, that we could be in danger of losing a bit of ourselves, a very large bit, Scotland, and we could be in danger of falling out of the European Union. Do you perceive us as having a nervous breakdown?
I think that's a very dramatic kind of depiction.
Possible. Yeah. Kind of possible.
Well, look, I think we're living in a time where identity issues are increasingly driving politics. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about one in the Middle East.
You're being very generous. You're talking about the Times. But what about us? Do you think we are in a little bit of trouble?
I wouldn't call it trouble, but I think you have some hard choices, to coin a phrase from the title of my book. Yes. Look, I have no vote in the referendum in Scotland, but from my perspective, it would be, as President Obama said, better if the UK remained united and went forward together. That's going to be up to the Scottish people.
And Europe?
And Europe, I think the EU is an extraordinary political creation. That doesn't mean it is sacrosanct. I think there may very well be grounds for reforms, and I know that's something that the government here has been advocating for. But I would hate to see the EU without the UK, and I would hate to see the EU basically degraded so that it can't make the reforms necessary for it to continue to move toward that wholeness and that freedom.
Now, I hardly need to tell you that one of the excitements about you is you're a woman.
Thank
and you're
you.
a woman who has, yeah, well, I mean, that much is clear.
Thank you.
but you're a woman who has achieved on an amazing scale. Do you have another job in you?
That's what I will have to decide. I have the job of grandmother in me.
Well,
I'm very much looking forward to that. Oh yes, that's the immediate
But will
excitement.
there be time for Granny?
Well, I have to find out. I've never done it before. I've run for president before. I've never been a grandmother before. I'm thinking very seriously about it, but I'm not ready to make any decision. I know what the job takes, and the job has only gotten harder over years. We have one person to fill both roles, head of state, head of government. It's an awesome responsibility. We also have a lot of problems at home. So we have an economic crisis, a growth crisis, an equality crisis, but we also have a political crisis. Our democracy is not working. We are in gridlock, we are paralyzed. We have the extremes driving the political debate. So the job of the current president, and he's working very hard on it, is to try to deal with both the economic and the political crisis. I believe that will continue to be the job of the next president.
Hillary Clinton, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
And you can see a longer version of that interview with Hillary Clinton on our website. Go to channel4.com/news.